Okay, what up, you guys? So, I'm gonna make a quick video here, you guys. I went on a little break for a little bit, and I had some personal things going on. I kind of got to get myself back centered again, so I want to get back on track. This year, I'm going to take more action, because you always feel like you can never learn enough. You can never be informed enough. There's always more to know, more to learn. But really, life is about taking action. You get the most experience out of just taking action. This is how you're going to know what to do, not just watching videos and doing all this, and then it's like, 'cause it's never going to be the right time to do anything, right? Okay, so let's get right to it. We're going to talk about the sweet spot of the present moment. I'm going to get into two things. We're going to talk about the sweet spot of the present moment, and I'm going to talk about the observer. Now, I was talking about this before in a video I made before. Staying in the present moment, right? Because if you spend too much time in the future, if you spend too much time in the past, it can pretty much cause depression. You don't really know why that happens, but that's like a side effect, right? We are meant to exist in the present moment, right? And from the books that I've been reading, the Dr. Joe Dispenza books I've been reading, this makes sense. He pretty much puts it like being in that sweet spot of the present moment is where you should prefer to exist, because this is a space where all possibilities exist. All possibilities exist when you're in that sweet spot. So if you want some things to happen, you want your manifestations to happen, the highest chances for it to happen is being in that sweet spot of the present moment. That's the most possible highest chances for that to happen, right? Okay, so being in that sweet spot of the present moment, we can't really trick our brains into believing like, oh yeah, we are in that moment. You're in that moment. It's hard to be in that moment with all the programming, everything that has happened, but it's possible for you to pull yourself back in that moment. An example of this moment, I'm going to give a quick example of this moment. An example of this sweet spot present moment, right? It's kind of hard if you let yourself be distracted a lot, but you got to just kill the distractions off. If you really want this, you can do this. The real sweet spot of the present moment, when I would say pretty much everybody experiences it without even trying to, is when you first wake up. When you first wake up, that first 7 seconds that you wake up, you are in that sweet spot. None of your problems came to you yet. You haven't started identifying with anything yet. You haven't got a chance to think about anything yet. What happened last night? What's about to happen? What are you trying to do today? Your anticipations. It hasn't happened yet. Now, it's coming. Soon as your eyes open, it's coming. It's coming. But this is an example of when you're in that sweet spot, because you're just looking around trying to figure out who you are. Now, I don't know if this ever happened to you guys before, but sometimes you wake up and you feel like you have been so far away from your body. You're like, I felt like I was just so far away from my body. Like, and now you are where you are. You're waking up in your body. Now, when you first wake up, you really are trying to, your body is hurry up and it starts searching for an identity as soon as you wake up. Because when you first wake up, you're not identifying with anything that first 7 seconds. That is the sweet spot. That is the sweet spot. And then it comes and you have to remember, okay, my name is Derica. I live in this state. I work this job. I'm this person's mom. I'm this, that, yada, yada. This is what I'm doing. Okay? And now you start carrying out the will of all that programming. Okay? Am I in the right space? Hold on. Yes, I am. Okay. You start carrying out those programs and that will of who you think you identify to be, right? Now, I gave that example because that is this example of you being in that sweet spot. You're not judging anything. You're not identifying with anything. Because the minute you start judging something, you're identifying with something. The minute you start relating to something, you're identifying with something. The minute you start to put any extra thought process on something other than just being the observer, you just want to be the observer. The observer is how you stay in the present moment. Now, another example of the observer. Well, that was an example actually of being in the present moment. But a way to stay in that mode, right? Think about it like this. Now, you have, I used to always be obsessed with this thought process when I was young, because I used to feel like, man, it's like two different brains going on here. There's something that gets the information, and then there's another brain where it's trickling down into that brain. I might blow some people, they might not understand this, but this is how I used to think about stuff being a very young person going into a teenager. And then I started learning about the concept of the conscious and the subconscious mind. So I was like, okay, maybe that's what it is. But eventually, as time went on, I figured out what it was. What it is there's the observer and there's the one being observed. This is all happening in your brain. And maybe it might not even be in your brain. This is all happening in your consciousness. You're being observed and you're observing something. You're both. You're being observed. My bad, y'all. You're being observed and you're observing something. Now, the one who is being observed, that's who you think you are. That's who you think you are. Identifying, the one who's being observed is the one that has identified with the trauma that has happened to them. It is the person who is identifying with the bad things that has happened to them, things that traumatized them, things that made them happy, all of that. Things you've been identifying with, thinking you're identifying with, that's the observed, the one who's being observed. That's you, but that's not all you. That's more like, I would say that's like your past. Because that person is a result of all the buildup of everything in your life that has happened to you that you identify with, right? Now, you have the observer. The observer is the one that is watching all this happen to you, which is you. But if you notice the observer, it's never moved. It is never moved. It doesn't move. The observer has not been moved by none of the traumatizing things that has happened to you. Even the worst things that you can say that has happened to you, that you said, oh man, this bad thing happened to me, this good thing has happened to me. Either one, the observer has never been moved by that. This is why when you gain something in your life, even something that you perceive as positive, and you get something, maybe you win something or you accomplish something, you start feeling like, damn, I don't feel different. I still feel the same. That's the observer that never moves. Now, even when something bad has happened to you, yeah, it has affected you. You may have some trauma, which forms kind of like why you ended up the way you end up. But at the same time, you can say this at the end of the day, what has ever really happened to me? Nothing has ever really happened to me. Nothing has ever really happened to me. That's the observer. The one who's watching everything. It's this term, I believe it's called like metacognition. And it's when you're watching yourself think. You're watching yourself think. and do. Now, I bring that scenario up because the first 7 seconds, 5 to 7 seconds when you wake up in the morning, the observer, which is you, that is the unmoved version of you. It cannot move. It stays still no matter what. It always stays still. The unmoved version of you, that's the observer. The observer and the one that's being observed, which is the one that's been through the trauma, the one that's been through the drama, the one that's trying to relate, that's trying to identify with something. The observer and the observing, both you, two different states of mind. The observer and the observing is in sync and is in alignment. They're in alignment for the first 5 to 7 seconds when you wake up. Because when you wake up, your identity hasn't hit you yet. You are just a looker. You're just an observer. You're recalling who you are. And it's coming. Because the first 10 seconds you figure it out. But you're trying to, within the time of that coming and you're recalling that, the observer and the observed is in alignment. Now, when I talk about being in the present moment and I talk about this sweet spot, from my research, I believe that is the sweet spot. That is the one that if we want to try to figure out where it's at and what it is, that's where it is. It doesn't have to stay there all the time though, because we don't practice it. But when you first wake up, it takes a second for the programming and all the BS to hit you. It takes about 7 seconds. And that's just me guessing a number. It takes a few seconds though for it to hit you. So if you want to know what that is, it's that moment right there. It's when you first wake up. The first few seconds when you first wake up before you start identifying with life. What happened to you? That is when it's both in sync. Now, when you get them both in sync, that is the sweet spot of the present moment. Because the observer, that's the version of you that's always in the present moment. But you wander off from that. And you have to think, if I'm not in that sweet spot of the present moment, where exactly am I? I'm in the past. I'm in the future. I'm not here right now. I am not here right now. And you want to be here right now. Because that sweet spot is where all possibilities can exist. No, where they all do exist. I'm sorry, you guys. There's a lot of distractions happening. I decided to make a video and a lot of distractions decided to start happening. So I'm staying focused here. The sweet spot of that present moment is where all possibilities are able to exist. So it's your highest chances of your manifestation being able to happen. Okay? So let's do some homework here, you guys, and me too. I'm going to figure out how to stay in that sweet spot more. And another thing to help staying in this sweet spot, don't judge, don't identify, don't relate with anything. Just observe. Just observe. Why you feel the way you feel about who you feel about, and what about what situation, because of the calculations of the notes you took in the past, which caused you to think like none of that matters. None of that matters. Stay in that present sweet spot mode. Stay being the observer. Just be looking. The looker, the observer. Without attaching anything to that. Don't attach anything to that. The minute you start attaching judgment, relating, anything of that nature, you're getting taken out of that sweet spot. Just be the observer. I'm going to make another video about this pretty soon. I'll be in a less distracted environment, but I'm going to make another video about this pretty soon, you guys. But I just want to throw something out there because I'm going to get into making, I'm probably going to be dropping one video every day about things of this nature, you guys. I've been obsessed with the Observer since I was a young teenager, a tweenager. So I've been obsessed with this concept for a while, and I've finally feel like I got some type of smudge of an answer about this. So I want to be able to share that. So like I said, when I make these videos, this is me talking to myself, having talks with myself, but I want to share it. Okay? So you guys make sure you guys have a good day, and be the observer. That's it. That is it. Take care.